to do that. Let me, oh, we got it. Okay. Thank you, Lucky.
Hey, yeah, no problem.
I do appreciate it. Hey. Okay. So the way I'm going to go ahead and get started. Just want to put out a couple of things first. Please, let's everyone be respectful. I don't think that'll be a problem, but let's be respectful. Let's be present. Turn off notifications on your phone and on your computer if you can, so that, you know, we can put our focus on this. Mr. Conklin's here today, giving up part of his Sunday afternoon, so it's very much respect for him to do that. For those people who will be joining us later, looking at this as a recording, I am Richard Billingsley, the founder and president of Ozark. Oh, let me start over. Ozark Rail and Bus Transit Society. We are community activists. We're working on green mass transit here in Northwest Arkansas. I was born and raised in Arkansas, but I lived many years in Texas. Saw communities in Texas growing the way we're growing now, but they put off doing very much work in mass transit until it just overwhelmed them. They had to do something. This, of course, increased costs great deal. I mean, maybe 10 times what it would have been. So I'm thinking if people get started now in this area, thinking about transit, thinking about buses and other means of getting around, then we can reduce cost in the long haul by planning now and getting transit ready. And we'll be talking about that some more. So pursuant to that, we do some research, we do education, we do community organizing. With that in mind, yesterday I attended a campaign training. Took about half a day. Learned a lot about what it takes to run a campaign. Over this next year and starting very soon, we'll be working with Ozark Regional Transit Authority to help them get dedicated funding. There's just a lot of work that's going to go into that, and I didn't even realize how much, but that's good. We'll do the work. So with that in mind, I'm also going to be looking for a volunteer. And if you want to volunteer to help us, or if you know someone, DM me. We won't take up meeting time for now, but send me a digital message and we'll talk about it. We won't be able to pay anybody anything, but I actually write really great letters of recommendation, and I've helped people get good jobs. I was in management in community mental health for a number of years, and that's where I got that kind of experience. So I'm glad to be out of it, but when I was there, I enjoyed the work. And so that's what we can offer someone. So maybe they're a college student, maybe they're in graduate school for social work. I know social workers do political activism, or maybe they're in law school, whatever the case is. Just have them talk to me. They'll be doing some fairly comprehensive work. They'll help us with planning and training volunteers, and help us with finance issues and all kinds of things. So that's going to be very important. And so with all that out of the way, we are going to have a series of monthly meetings, mostly on Zoom for the time being, until COVID passes and we can, take care of our health in the meantime. But we're going to have people come on and talk to us about what we want to do, the various aspects and all the nitty gritty, get us into some details. Today, our guest is Tim Conklin, who's the Assistant Director at Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission. And Tim, thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Richard.
Yeah, and thank you for being here on part of your Sunday. As I indicated, Tim's going to make a presentation to us, and then we'll open up the floor for questions. And so we'll get started. Tim, you can, if Lucky can let you share the screen, we will get started with that.
Yeah, let me see if this works. after doing this for 18 months on Zoom, you think we'd have it all set and working now. Let me hit share. Let me see if I can make this full screen. You're gonna have to tell me whether or not it's turned to full
It
screen.
is. It's full screen. Yes.
Full screen.
Yes.
The presentation is?
Yes.
Okay. So, well, first of all, let me just say that for those others in your organization, I must say that Richard Billingsley and Tom Brown have been very active in reaching out to the Regional Planning Commission, reading all of our plans, commenting on all of our plans. And I must say that those two probably know more about what's in the plans at regional planning than most people in Northwest Arkansas. So I just wanted to thank both of you for that. Just really quick about our organization. We are a bi-state metropolitan planning organization. So we serve Benton and Washington counties and a portion of McDonald County, Missouri. MPO is designated for all urbanized areas over 50,000 population through the census. Let me flip to this next slide. Richard, are my slides advancing?
Yes.
Yes, okay, thank you. I can't tell on my end. So just really quick, when Richard reached out to me, he wanted to know about the 2020 census and what that meant for our region and federal funding. And so first of all, we have 31 cities in Benton and Washington County, plus the 2 counties. Then we, so for today's, I guess, talk, since we're talking about transit, public transit and transit funding, just wanted to share with everybody that one of the, in my opinion, the bigger challenges that we face is that we don't have one large core city championing public transportation. So as you can see from this pie chart, the largest city, the city of Fayetteville, represents about 18% of the 2 county population, around 530,000 population today. Next is Springdale with 16%, Rogers 13%, Bentonville 10%. Those 4 cities together make up about 57% of the 2 county population. So anything that we do with regard to regional transit, trails, highways, we all have to work together because obviously it's not just one entity planning the region. So I just wanted to make that point. This next slide, which is probably difficult to read, but this is probably one of the more important pieces to the puzzle when it comes down to funding, at least the federal funding through FTA. This is what's called an urbanized area boundary. And this is what sets the population that's used in these formula type programs that when money is apportioned out across the United States, they're looking at the population. So once again, we have 530,000 people in the 2 county region. However, this map, you'll note the date on it says the 2010 census. We do not have 2020 census urbanized area population. The population, so it includes Bella Vista, Bentonville, Centerton, Rogers, Lowell, Springdale, Johnson, Fayetteville, and some smaller cities on the edges. So that's the urbanized area. It does not include Siloam Springs. So the funding that the Regional Planning Commission gets to award to ORT and to Razorback Transit is based on the population here. So this is 295,000 in 2010. That was based on a 2 county population of about 424,000. So the 2020 census is out. We added 105,800 people since 2010 in the 2 county region. So I'm going to make a guess that we should land somewhere close to 400,000 people in the urbanized area. And so that number will be used by FTA and FHWA in the type programs. So didn't have a chance to update this, but the estimate originally before the census came out was 531,304 in the 2-county area. So census actually came out at 530, so what, 1,300 lower. Just really quick, in the US mode of transportation to work, it's probably no big surprise, 90% are using auto or truck, 5% are using public transportation, 2.8% are walking. Transit commuters in the US, the highest is New York City at 31, 11% in Chicago, 8% in Seattle. So once again, this is commuting. And I would just note for those that are looking at these slides is that that doesn't account all the other trips that are non-commute type trips. So in Northwest Arkansas, the American Community Survey does provide data for our region with how people are traveling. And once again, this is important because it also helps inform understanding travel behavior in Northwest Arkansas. So we have 2 periods that were looked at, 2009 to 13 and 2015 to 2019. With regard to public transportation, you can see Washington County, the red, had about 1%. That's probably no big surprise because we have Razorback Transit and the University of Arkansas, which is carrying a significant amount of unlinked trips each day. However, you'll note that you get into the next period that was looked at, it's gone down somewhat, and I have additional data that I can show further in this presentation with regard to what is actually happening to ridership in Northwest Arkansas. So I think everybody understands when we say public transportation, what we have today in Northwest Arkansas are 2 systems. One is operated by the University of Arkansas. It's called Razorback Transit. They operate solely in the city of Fayetteville. All the rides are fare-free in Fayetteville. So whether or not you are a student or a citizen in Fayetteville, you can jump on Razorback Transit. And then we have Ozark Regional Transit, which is operating in the 4 major cities with fixed route transit. Their board is made up of the 4 large cities, and then Benton County, Washington County, Madison County, and Carroll County are on the board. So it's an 8-person board that oversees Ozark Regional Transit Authority. With regard to trips in our region, Fayetteville leads the amount of people utilizing public transportation and transit. So 94% of all trips made on public transportation are in the city of Fayetteville. And when we get to look at the numbers in the other cities north of Fayetteville, you can see why that number is so high. We completed our 10-year transit development plan. The vision is connecting people, saving them time, and giving them freedom. What makes transit effective? It takes me where I want to go, when I want to go there. It's reliable, it saves me time, and it gives them freedom. So, but more importantly, if you want to understand how certain systems are attracting transit riders and changing trip behavior, you can note when you look at some peer cities that we looked at with regard to annual vehicle revenue miles, you'll notice Madison, Eugene, Des Moines are delivering millions of revenue miles. And here's Razorback Transit up here in ORT. So once again, how often, and a revenue, just for everybody's understanding, a revenue mile is when the bus is in service and can pick people up, not during from the shop to the start of the route. So these are revenue miles. So annual unlinked passenger trips, you can see the correlation with revenue miles and trips in the top performing metro areas, and total expenditure is what I would say is a challenge for Northwest Arkansas. It takes money to deliver revenue miles, revenue hours, and bus service. And so when you look at the expenditure in these metros, they are providing millions more dollars than what we currently are doing in Northwest Arkansas. So once again, just looking at what makes transit effective, just looking at cost per passenger, fare box rate. And by the way, fare box with COVID, ORT is no longer charging a ticket to get on the bus. They did receive a grant through the Walton Family Foundation to offset that cost, at least for 2021. But you can see the more people you can get on your bus, you can start driving some of those costs down per hour, per mile. So what supports transit? I think everybody understands density. You need connectivity. Obviously, we need community support. And that's why we're here on a Sunday afternoon talking about transit and ease of use. And why does transit matter? It saves people money, it reduces congestions. It's 10 times safer to travel by transit than an automobile, and it helps protect the environment. The Regional Planning Commission over the last 5-8 years has been doing a lot of data collection with regard to who is currently using transit in Northwest Arkansas. We surveyed over 1,000 people on the bus, on the 2 buses, did an onboard survey, understanding what type of trips they're making. That data is utilized in travel demand modeling, which is a requirement to actually apply for some of these federal programs to do other types of transit. So as you can see, it's probably no surprise, Razorback Transit is home to the university. And then for ORT, it's home to shopping currently, based on the service we provide. How do you get to transit in Northwest Arkansas? You walk. Your transit trip doesn't start when you're on the bus, it starts when you leave your house. So over 83% of the people walk to transit. And we have a lot to do walking and biking conditions and accessibility to transit. Now, these are the current people utilizing both systems. It takes me where I want to go was one of the goals. We looked at transit dependent populations and did some geographic information system work. So you can certainly see where people live that benefit the most from transit. So the little graph, household vehicles, you can see that ORT over 70% said none. So once again, if the bus doesn't operate, they don't have access to go any significant distance. And keep in mind, ORT is only operating Monday through Friday, so days of service are very limited. Takes me where I want to go again. Once again, we did a transit needs index mapping of the greatest need in Northwest Arkansas for transit. Also looked at household income, auto sufficiency, number of automobiles, and really did a deep dive into where people are living. And then once again, where are they trying to get to utilizing transit? And then it gives me freedom to change my plans. I think one of the biggest deficiencies, I would say, in our system today is that we do not have great frequency. We do not have great span of service when the transit starts and when it ends. And we certainly don't have Saturday and Sunday service north of Fayetteville in the region. Fayetteville is benefits from the University of Arkansas running some weekend service. So overall, the plan, if you want to take a deep dive, it's on our website, and it talks about a 10-year strategy, 10-year vision to improve public transportation and ridership in Northwest Arkansas. And the study area, again, was a deep dive into the 4 cities that currently are funding fixed route public transit. So I'll just say this right now. Others said, well, why isn't it for the entire region? This study was looking at, once again, the urbanized area, the money that comes to the region in the urban area through FTA and how it's matched by the cities. And the vision was to at least start with the 4 major cities and find a way to find some dedicated funding to improve transit beyond what it currently is today. So market analysis, whoops, really quick, let me go back there. Market analysis, once again, looking at population density, which is always important because the more density you have for where people live and where people work, the more opportunity you have to get transit trips, people on the bus, on public transportation. So once again, that goes into that. Future local transit. Once again, in each of the cities, a deep dive in how the routes could be phased over 3 different phases, but overall in Fayetteville, Springdale, Johnson, Bentonville, and Rogers. And I'll just note that without going into a lot of detail, there was a lot of discussion with regard to the new Walmart home office with their 15,000 plus employees up in that 8th Street corridor, and making sure both cities work together along with ORT to see how best to serve that area once that new home office opens up. Also includes bus stop standards. I'll just say that many of the bus stops don't provide a lot of protection from the weather. They certainly need to be improved in many of the cities. I will commend Fayetteville for going out and improving the bus stops. I can't remember exactly how many, it's at least in the teens, if not 20s, of bus stops that are being improved. But once again, taking the bus, does it, is it a positive experience, or are you standing in a mud puddle or on the grass and no sidewalks to get there? So we have a lot of work to do that. And we continue to, as a region, work on complete streets and fund projects that improve these 2-lane open ditch cow path type roadways with no bike ped to enhance where it does have bicycle and pedestrian accommodations. So what do we learn through that whole thing? There's definitely community support for transit. Obviously, the more funding, the more ridership you can get because you're putting more service out there and you're making it more useful. We need to become transit ready, and all the cities, all the major 4 cities, and more than just the 4, all have downtown master plans and are looking at increased density and employment density in the region. We were very fortunate to have an expert come to Northwest Arkansas, Jarrett Walker. And if you haven't read this book, I highly recommend it. Human Transit, How Clearer Thinking About Public Transit Can Enrich Our Communities and Our Lives. We also have his video available on our website, and highly recommend your members watch that also. But he takes these 7 principles that it takes me where I want to go, when I want to go there. So does the bus from your house, does it go to where you want to end up? If you leave today on a Sunday, is it even available to where you want to go? Is it a good use of your time? How long is it going to take you to walk, wait, get on the bus? If you miss the bus by 2 minutes, are you waiting 60 minutes? Are you waiting 30 minutes? Are you waiting 15 or 20 minutes? The way travel behavior and modeling work is that people, this is the entire trip, how long does it take you to get somewhere? Is it a good use of my money? And everybody needs to keep in mind your time factors in at least travel behavior and money. If you miss the bus and you're waiting an hour, a lot of times you're not going to use transit as a viable option. Does it respect me? Do you have shelter? Do you have good street lighting? Do you have a way to get from your house to the stop and from where your destination to your final destination? Can I trust it? Does it show up? Do I know it's going to actually come on time? And can I change my plans? A little quick funny story on that, change my plans. I had an opportunity to be in Europe and the train broke down and I was just freaking out. I couldn't believe I was trying to get over to Amsterdam and I was in Belgium, and it was like, well, what are we gonna do? How do we get, we're in the middle of nowhere. And all of a sudden I realized, it's like, well, the next train comes in 20 minutes. And it's like, oh, okay. This is not like a once a day or once every 4 hours. So kind of interesting. We also had some transit speaker series. Other individuals come. We had Raleigh Durham, the North Carolina Research Triangle. One of the quotes here, being regional doesn't require doing everything together at the same time. I think that really resonated with everybody. So if we're waiting for 31 cities and 2 counties to do everything at the same time in order to improve public transportation, their experience is that if there's an entity that's ready to improve public transportation, you need to work with that entity and make that happen. So if you're trying to, once again, no, we can't do it because we need to have everybody together. His recommendation, Joe Malazio, was they didn't do it all together and they got dedicated funding. And then Indianapolis just talked about building coalitions, everybody, all ages, all abilities. In order to actually make it happen, you need to start building coalitions, which I think this organization, your organization, is doing. So once again, going a little backwards here, 2018, we did the origin destination study. So that's on our website if you want to see where people are. With regard to funding now, how is transit funded in Northwest Arkansas? So the Federal Transit Administration apportions funding across the United States to urban areas, and the Regional Planning Commission is the designated recipient. We have, once again, 2 operators. So the Regional Planning Commission, which is made up of the mayors and the county judges, and RDOT and MoDOT, they get to decide how to split the money between the 2 providers. And then RDOT is the designated recipient for FTA rural funding. So ORT does receive some rural funding for their demand response vans that go out into the counties. And then the local jurisdictions provide funds. Then the state of Arkansas has a rental car tax and franchise fees. And then the University of Arkansas, student fees and some allocation. And then the transit riders fare box. Now this slide's out of date because we're no longer collecting fares. So I think I mentioned to everybody, we have 2 providers, we have 4 cities with fixed route, and we have 5 entities really providing local funding. And then here are the numbers for 2020. I don't have the 21 numbers updated in the slide, but in 2020, the region received about $3 million. The University of Arkansas students, through their fees, provided $2 million. The U of A kicked in another $300,000. The city's half-cent sales tax turnback. Bentonville put about $125,000 into transit. Fayetteville put $805,000 into transit. That was $532,000 to ORT and $273,000 to Razorback. Rogers had $467,000 and Springdale at $361,000. That's about $1.7 million from the local entities. Whoops. And then the state rental car tax was about $582,000, and then the franchise fees $750,000. Now, Richard, this slide is for you because you asked me how does the federal, this is a deep dive, so if I'm putting everybody to sleep on a Sunday afternoon, I can be quiet and you guys can ask me.
No, it's great. Thank you for putting that in.
So the bigger money, the $3 million that we get. So this is under the FAST Act. This is not the bipartisan infrastructure bill that Congress is taking up maybe as early as tomorrow, but I don't have a chart for the infrastructure bill. My understanding is there's a significant investment in transit, but this is how it works. But I do understand that the infrastructure bill does plan to utilize the same federal formula process to push out the federal dollars to the urban areas. So just really quick. So you get an appropriated amount, it gets a portion to the state. Some key things, if you're looking at all these boxes.
We can go online and look.
If you look at this, so you see allocated 90.68% allocated to
This is
UZA
my 3 o'clock mass transit,
population or greater.
mass transit meeting. It's just a volunteer group. It's not a big deal. Okay. I'm just in it because they care about transportation and
Someone's on.
Yeah, let me just throw in here. Everybody, please mute your phone or computer, whatever. And if you have your video on, please turn it off and that way we'll just hear Mr. Conklin. Thank you very much.
So if you're following the lines here, we're a UZA, so urbanized area. We're 200,000. Check the box. And then there's fixed guideway, which we don't have fixed guideway, which is like a rail line on fixed guideway, and bus tier. And then you'll see that it gets broken down further. There's a non-incentive tier and an incentive tier over here, but if you follow down here, this gets allocated to UZAs of 1 million or more, and this is allocated to UZAs of under 1 million. So we're UZA under 1 million. So what drives the money? How do you get more money for transit? Federal money. If we're, just talking about federal. So BVRM is bus vehicle revenue miles. The 50% of the federal funds is dependent on how many bus vehicle revenue miles ORT and Razorback produce annually. 25% is based on population times population density, and then 25% is just on population. So the 50%, and I have the next slide, I will show where we're at on bus vehicle revenue miles, which has decreased over the last few years. But on the population side, that 50%, we added as I mentioned, in the 2 county, 105,800. But in the urbanized area, I'm thinking we're going to be close to 400,000. Now, this applies to the entire United States, so I'm not sure how it all comes out in the wash with regard to the new urbanized area population, how the money is split. But that is called 5307 funds. That's what we receive annually, and that's what's pushed out to ORT and Razorback Transit. The next slide, really quick. This is fixed route hours, and earlier I thought I had miles, but this is hours, but I apologize. But as you can see, Razorback Transit has been adding hours over time since 2007. However, ORT has had some funding issues, and their revenue hours topped out over 50,000 hours and have gone down to 34,000 hours. If I had the graphs for vehicle revenue miles, they would look similar because the number of hours you're running the bus produce the miles, but the line for ORT is going the wrong direction with regard to increasing. But overall, when you put them together, the region is increasing with the funding Razorback Transit and the students are putting in through their student fee. But so 50% of the equation is how many hours and miles, or how many miles that bus is actually operating in the region. So I'm going to switch just really quick. We also did a scientific survey. We wanted to understand people's support for and satisfaction of the transportation system. We had 834 surveys completed. This was a random sample conducted by ETC Institute out of Kansas City. We asked, question 13 was, how do you think the current level of funding for public transportation in the Northwest Arkansas region should change over the next 10 years? 30% said much greater, 44% said somewhat greater. So that's 74% that thought somewhat greater and much greater. 22% said stay the same, and 4% said should be reduced. So I thought that was very positive that there's, based on this snapshot in 2019 at the time, that funding should be increased either somewhat or much greater in Northwest Arkansas. We also asked individuals, how satisfied are you with the following aspects of the transportation in the Northwest Arkansas region? Blue is good. People are very satisfied. Red is bad, red and orange. So probably no surprise when you put $100+ million in trails and you have 250 miles of shared use paved trail and another 300 or 400 miles, or I don't know if I had that, 200 or 300 miles of soft surface trail. That ranked number one as most satisfied. However, at the very bottom, transit, people were the least satisfied. The availability of public transit in Northwest Arkansas and the ease of travel by public transportation showed up very high, 74% dissatisfied with the availability and 70% with the ease of travel. I don't think that's probably any surprise to this group. So overall, we did the plan. The plan talked about how to improve fixed route public transit. So in Bentonville, significant changes in the amount of bus routes and peak buses. In Fayetteville, not as significant because you're already running a fairly large number of buses between both transit providers. However, you still are increasing your peak buses. So basically making sure everybody can get on the bus during the peak times. Rogers, significant increase again. Top one is just the transit routes and the bottom's the peak buses. Springdale increasing, then overall in the region, increasing significantly, especially with the peak buses. The overall vision is to try to improve the number of people and service coverage to jobs. And so overall, trying to make sure that the service is available from people trying to get from home to shopping, home to work, home to school. And then, so once again, very aggressive plan. The plan also includes service standards. So depending on the type of route, so regional connectors, basically every 30 minutes, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. We don't have anything close to that today. For frequent service, every 30 minutes, once again, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. Coverage service, you have less frequency, so now you're at 40 or 60. And then mobility zones, which are utilizing some new tools out there, software that's available to transit agencies to look at providing more of a on-demand transit type service. And City of Rogers is currently running 2 buses through that, and they are paying for that software to implement that in the City of Rogers. So project implementation, this is our current $8 million we spend. Phase 1 was around 20, phase 2, another 2.2, then phase 3 was 12. It was close to $43 million. Once it's all implemented, it would require dedicated funding on an annual basis to get there. It would see ridership go from 8 to 10,000 riders a day, up to about 24,000 riders a day, a 200% increase. The investment would have to happen over 10 years. Currently, ORT really doesn't have a large fund balance to do capital planning. They spend pretty much all the federal and local dollars each year. They've been able to recover from the devastating fire where burned almost all their buses through some competitive grants for bus facilities. So that has been good. But overall, it's very difficult for the regional transit system to make any significant changes today. So as we all know, this is why we're doing this by Zoom, COVID hit, and this was clear during last summer and early fall that obviously the timeline here probably needs to adjust to see where we land post-pandemic, post-COVID, and get ridership back. Ridership has fallen 50% on the bus line. So it's I think it's a very hard discussion right now with regard to dedicated funding with where we're at. And once again, this is just showing the overall plan connecting the region together in the urbanized area. And this is just showing that was Fayetteville, this is Bentonville. I'm pretty much almost done here, everybody. So overall, I've been so fortunate, and the region has, to bring experts in and speakers from all over and visiting cities. Other high-performing regions all have dedicated local funding. The federal government is not going to come in here and build our bus system or build a fixed guideway system without local funding. And what holds Northwest Arkansas back is the inability to have year after year dedicated funding to advance transit. But it's all funded through the annual budgeting process. So you'll probably see articles in the paper. It's coming out of Fayetteville, Springdale, Rogers, Bentonville's budgets. So you have city council members and the budget process, and that makes it very difficult from year to year to plan any major changes on a transit system. And overall, I think our region can get there, but we're going to have to work together and find a method to find dedicated funding. So I don't have a slide on this, but in Arkansas Code annotated, there is existing legislation that allows cities and counties to refer to the voters the option to utilize sales tax for public transportation. Last time that was done was in 2012. It failed in almost every, or failed, excuse me, it failed. It was put on the ballot in Washington County. It looked like, I was looking at the precinct votes last summer, looked like Fayetteville, some of the precincts passed it, but as you got north of Fayetteville, it looked like it was not passing. So there's a lot of work to get to the point where something that on the ballot could be brought up and be successful. So that's all I have with regard to what I was going to present, and I can stop my share now and take any questions, Richard and Tom.
Hi, thank you. Yeah, that was a great presentation. Let me get my video working. All right. I have a couple of questions that I want to follow up on. So one thing I read one thing that our members have mentioned that they would like to see is an airport shuttle bus. And I think I read in NWA Connect that you had looked at it, and for some reason it didn't look like it was good cost benefit for right now. But if we're going to get transit ready, there is a short road to the east of the airport that the buses would use. And it's not wide enough for both buses to use at the same time. It's way too narrow, so we need to widen it. So is becoming transit ready, does that also mean finding things like that and then looking at widening that road? It will cost some money, but it's not a big, long, like miles and miles. It's probably a half mile or so. I meant to go look at it today, I'm sorry, or before today, and I didn't, but I know what they're talking about when ORT says we can't fit our buses on there.
I'm not sure what particular road, but I mean, there is a plan to connect US 612, the future 412, to XNA. And actually coming up this month, there'll be a public design hearing on that new route. So that'll be coming off 612. But specifically, your question about the bus and the airport, my understanding is when Alliance Transportation Group, the gentleman out of Austin, when he looked at that, it is very difficult because we are such a large region and have a polycentric cities. We don't have one big central city with a bunch of high-rise buildings where everybody's trying to get there. We have Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, and Fayetteville. And his experience in trying to make that work is the frequency of the bus, the number of buses, and how often they would be at the airport, and the number of passengers that would all be going to the same place. So they did not think it was feasible at this time. Alliance Transportation Group was their analysis.
Well, I know for sure I would use it, but anyway. And let's see, doesn't Rogers have some Saturday service? Maybe it's an on-demand, or
I think it's yeah, it's the on-demand. Thank you. Yes, I did hear that at our conference, American Planning Association. Yes, I did hear that they do have some on-demand on Saturday. So thanks for correcting me on that.
well, I'm not trying to correct, I'm just, that's what I had heard and I didn't know
Yeah,
for sure. And I just wanted to clarify that.
yeah.
I just do want to say that, you know, some of the money from this dedicated funding, I'm sure will go into bus stops. A lot of our bus stops are hard to find. It's just a sign stuck in the grass somewhere, and that's not adequate. You know, we, along with expanding routes and more frequency and more days, we need to build more shelters. And that really helps. I've used bus service in big cities around, and it makes a lot of difference. And when the graph was talking about, you know, does this respect me? The bus shelter is an indication that there is a certain amount of respect for the riders, and that will bring people back if they feel like there's some value put in them, you know, as riders. I just want to throw that in. And let's see. I think we have some questions. Lucky, you had a question. Go ahead and ask that. I know you wrote it out, but ask it anyway.
Oh, sure. I was just looking at that, you know, the kind of graph that you had with the kind of funding allocation process. And
Yes.
it looked like maybe, and maybe this is my question, is that, you know, is commuter rail something that we could maybe hope for in the future, but is it relegated to like a higher population overall? Because, you know, that's kind of the dream, is like a commuter rail along 49, I think. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on that.
Well, Lucky, if you want to mention commuter rail or somebody with your group, I would be shocked. I would just be shocked. I would have to, I don't know, go out and lay in my front yard or something. So, so commuter rail was looked at. There was alternative analysis study that was done probably 5-6 years ago, and what they found was that the current ridership projections would not be high enough to even get close to meeting FTA, what's called small starts or new starts. And I'll just say this again, that I think it would be wonderful and great too to have some type of fixed guideway system connecting all the cities. But every time we talk about how that might work and how it's funded, we're challenged just to fund our bus service. And so at some point we need to get our bus service. And I don't want to bore everybody here about the ridership and the buses, but those numbers go into these models. There's something called the FTA stops model that they use, and it has to be reasonable with regard to how do people travel in your region, and is that travel behavior something that is not just a guess that people are actually doing. And so our bus service and the frequency of it, and for example, one of the cities, the routes, the service ends at around 4 o'clock. I mean, having a bus end at 4 o'clock is probably not useful for people work till 5, 6, or 7, or workers, and having a bus that doesn't operate on Saturday or Sunday. So we have a long way to go. However, I don't think, this is Northwest Arkansas. I know you're recording this, I'll just say this. Anything is possible in Northwest Arkansas. I will just say that. If people get their heads wrapped around it and they champion it, anything's possible. What I have seen over and over again is that successful regions have dedicated funding for public transit, not just their fixed guideway service, but they start with a very robust bus service. They build up the passengers, the unlinked trips, and they take that success and then they look at bus rapid transit or some type of fixed guideway linking these corridors together. And what I see in Northwest Arkansas is we have fairly good service. Probably careful how I say this. In Fayetteville, you have Razorback Transit and ORT, and we're spending. They are spending. The university's putting $2 million in. The city of Fayetteville is putting, at least in 2020, with $850,000. So we're almost up to $3 million, and then the federal money. So at least $4 million is probably being spent in Fayetteville. And so you see, but you also have the best market. You got 29,000 students today, the faculty, staff. It's not easy to park your car, drive to class and park in front of the classroom. So you got cost of parking, you got saving time using the bus. So there's a lot that goes into it. But back to the rail thing, we've looked at the AA, and we also did a BRT study, or Ozark Regional Transit did a BRT study from Fayetteville to Bentonville. And once again, the ridership numbers did not pan out in our travel demand model. Now, we had a lot of complaints from the public and professionals that our model needs to be improved. And so what we did is we went out and did the onboard survey of 1,000 bus passengers, and we fed that data on the type of trip purpose. And then we also hired Alliance Transportation Group to do an FTA stops model, which helps you get new starts money. We fed our model. We put 90% of all the employment within 10 miles of I-49. I think we put about 70% of all the new population, because we are planning for around 974,000 people by 2045 within that same area. So the vision or the plan is instead of going out, going up, becoming more dense urban residential employment. And even with that, there were some markets in Fayetteville and some in Rogers that are getting closer to be able to compete. But once again, we're very spread out in Northwest Arkansas with not having one big gigantic downtown with high rises. So that's the issue. I don't think I answered your question, Lucky. I apologize after all that.
No, that was really great. Thank you so much. That was very thorough.
Okay, we have another question from Julie Moody, and then we have I think Tom has his hand up. Let's ask Julie to ask her question, then we'll get to Tom.
Okay, thank you, Richard. I was wondering if any of the big corporations have been approached about dedicating funding.
ORT has talked in the past with the corporations. They have provided some funding to get workers to their plants. However, as of today, I'm not aware of any dedicated funding to the Ozark Regional Transit. And I'm hesitating a little because I don't want to, hopefully, I'm not the ORT director. So if there is something that has happened recently, I'm not aware of it, but pretty much they're relying on the cities for the 4 big cities and then the federal funds. And the university students, let me just say the university students and the student fees of the $2 million, that's a huge benefit to the city of Fayetteville and the citizens of Fayetteville, which the students are also citizens.
They are. All right. Julie, that answer your question or?
Yes, thank you. I'm
Okay.
sorry that we have to depend so much on the students. They, if they have to pay fees for that, I think corporations should step up and do more. Thank you.
I would like to see that too, but I'm also, one of the reasons we're going to work so much on dedicated funding through probably what's going to end up being a 1/4 cent sales tax passed by each of the 4 cities. That's why we're going to work on that, because that gives ORT a platform to operate on. So when they get federal funds or they get money from the Walton Foundation or from one of the big corporations, they can use that to build it. It gives them leverage, and it's much more beneficial. Tom, it looks like your hand is up. What is your question?
Tim, I really appreciate that really great presentation. You talked about leadership and how important that is in developing transit in Northwest Arkansas. I raised my hand because I had a couple of questions, but the first one I was wondering, in your mind, who is providing or isn't providing the leadership and right now in the transit issue, and who do you think should be providing that leadership in improving bus and rail transit in Northwest Arkansas?
Well, obviously the commission is interested in improving transit, and we've invested funds into studies and surveys and trying to understand how to make this work and how to get it funded. So with regard to who's not or whatever, all the cities are our members, Tom.
Right.
Regional plan.
Right.
So some cities are once again have transit. We have 31 cities. So that's why I was trying to at least highlight the 4 big cities, because they are providing, $1.7 million of local funds that go to transit. And so obviously regional planning, I would like to say that the Ozark Regional Transit Authority Board, once again, the 4 member cities plus the 4 counties, they are currently going through a strategic planning process, and they recently hired Abby Foster to help them guide them through that process to look at how to implement Connect Northwest Arkansas. So at their last board meeting, they had their first board meeting with Ms. Foster to help facilitate that discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry for interrupting.
Oh,
Go ahead,
Yeah,
Tim.
I was trying to, so, I think overall, we're becoming urban. And so, trying to, I guess, be politically correct here too. We're becoming very urban. And I think the urban cities, at least in the plan and what has been recommended, is that if you want to see urban level of public transportation, at least the 4 large cities will need to step up and work together towards that vision. And then along with that, bring the other cities in the region into that discussion. But I think the greatest potential for success is getting the 4 large cities working together, because we are talking about regional transit. And so obviously one city can just do their own thing, but that really doesn't solve the issue when you have probably close to 400,000 people in the urban core of the region.
And I appreciate that answer. I was hearing all of the what I think are the right answers, Tim. I really appreciate it. I know that the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission is one of those leadership groups that is so important for all of transportation in the region. And you guys are doing a great job at providing that leadership. And then I heard you also mention the Ozark Regional Transit Authority, which has that leadership responsibility also, and that they are looking at their board structure and making potential governance changes to help them
Right.
and providing that leadership. So I do appreciate your comments, and I'm hearing, I think, some of the really good the right answers with you and the ORTA. But let me ask this question. An organization like the Northwest Arkansas Council, which is, if from my understanding, it's a group that is made up of the large the large employers in the region. And I know they were instrumental in getting getting XNA to Northwest Arkansas. And what do you think there's a role for an organization like that to take on transit and getting their employees, with the idea of getting their employees from their homes to their to the large employers and looking at a project of building a great transit system that serves their businesses and their employees?
Well, I guess to answer your question, I mean, yes, I mean, we need the business community backing everything that we're talking about, and along with trying to identify opportunities for dedicated funding. That is why one of the speaker series, we brought in the Raleigh-Durham individual, Joe Malazzo, to talk about why is it important for a region like Wake County, Raleigh-Durham to fund transit and to pass dedicated taxes. I think they have a 0.5-cent sales tax in Wake County. I think in the other counties, potentially either a quarter or a half. But it was really refreshing to hear about how important it is to the Raleigh-Durham area to make sure that transit is being adequately funded. So we do work with the Northwest Arkansas Council. I'll just say that during the last 3 or 4 years, the individuals have participated in these transit speaker series. We've had presentations, we've had dinners. So there has been that ongoing discussion, but in the future, yes, I mean, obviously the council has been very supportive. And once again, this is Northwest Arkansas. If everybody can get behind an idea and you can get agreement, I think anything is possible.
I really, in hearing that question from one of our members about approaching the businesses about getting assistance, I agree that that's something that they really do need their support, especially if we're able to develop a commuter rail system in the area. Talking to Walmart and their Walmart campus really, I think, has a lot of opportunities there. Let me just ask one more question, and I'll shut up. I understand that with the governance and the board structure issue for the Ozark Regional Transit Authority, that's underway right now. Are they going to be having some meetings that our membership might be interested in attending coming up here fairly soon?
Obviously, the meetings are always open to the public, and they do Zoom right now, or a hybrid in person and or Zoom. So with regard to the meetings, I'm probably too close to it. I find them very interesting. I like to hear the discussion. But I think people spending 2 hours on a Sunday afternoon when it's 85 degrees out, you're probably interested too. So, so I would say, you know, if you're interested in to hear the discussion, I thought it was very helpful for the first meeting to hear it. They do publicize their meetings on their website, and obviously they're open to the public. So Tom or Richard or any of you, I mean, they are open. You know, I think, you know, everybody's trying to move the needle and see this plan actually get implemented and work together. So I think it'd be valuable to at least have one or two of you listen.
So we need to go to their website, the Ozark Regional Transit website, and we can find the meeting schedule on there.
I tell you what, I can, when they send me the agenda, I'll forward it to you.
Okay, and
You don't see an email from me or anything, don't be shy, Tom or Richard, or you know where to find me. You just, if I get buried in email and I forget, just shoot me a quick email and I'll get it to you.
Okay, we'll get that out to our membership. So if they want to take advantage of that, thank you.
All right, and I see on here that Bradley Edwards writes that I'm surprised Bentonville isn't spending more on mass transit. They do have some fairly severe traffic issues, especially during the workday and the weekdays. So, you know, I think all of this, whether or not the university is paying in or the business or the towns, it's all about approaching the stakeholders. They're all stakeholders in this, and they all get something out of it. So we want to make sure they put something into it. Bradley, was there anything else you wanted to ask or say about that?
Well, I do think that we do a lot of work. I'm an architect. We do a lot of work in Benton County and especially in Bentonville, and they are building. I mean, the buildings up there that are going on, I mean, they're really densifying beyond, I think, even what you see in Fayetteville. So the downtown core in Bentonville is going to be, it's going to be really difficult to get around by car. Now they're spending a lot of money on infrastructure for biking. And it's been really successful. So I think they're maybe thinking about it in different ways, but I think the mistake that people are going to make is to just start expanding roads and increasing, lanes and things like that. And I think that's a problem. That's not really, it's not necessarily solving the problem. It's also hurting density and things like that we want for walkable cities. If you guys are interested, I do have a good friend of mine that's the director of sustainability at the DOT in Washington, who might be of interest to you. He's also married to a trails expert who literally wrote the book on pathways and trails for the federal government, so for federal highways. So if you guys are interested in listening to what they might have to say, I could talk to them and see if they might want to come and speak to the group or speak to the Ozark Regional Transit Group or something along those lines.
Yes, please DM me with all that information after you talk to them, and we will look at adding them to the roster and look forward to hearing what they have to say if they're willing to talk to us.
Sure.
Okay,
We-
and
we
Jim
actually
Wallace.
Took,
Oh, go
sorry.
ahead.
As I say, we actually, through a grant from the Walton Family Foundation, took a delegation over to Seattle. So key city officials, mayors, and met with the Seattle DOT, and they presented to the group. And then we got on the bus rapid transit bus with the you pay in advance, double doors, just get on. I think we actually may have done it's called a it's not a J turn, where the bus goes up to in front of all the cars through the light. I can't remember what it was called, but a Q jump. I think Q jump is what it's called. But it was really interesting to hear from them and see. But I'm a broken record. The thing they have is dedicated funding for transit in Seattle. So, and if you've been on their light rail system from SeaTac to downtown, it's, wonderful versus, being stuck in a car on I-5 if you happen to go there. So I just wanted to add that, yes, experts, we're all in for experts. We have brought them here. We have put mayors on buses and Austin and Seattle. And so if you're aware of any experts that want to come to the region and do it free or gratis or whatever, this would be great. I'm interested too. So yeah.
Okay, great. And Jim Wallace has a question about state funding. How much do we get from the state? I don't remember that in the presentation. Maybe there was some, but.
Yeah, there was some. I think it was around 500,000 in rental car tax.
Yeah.
And some franchise fees, but it's not a lot. Other states provide more for transit other than I used to work in Missouri for the MPO in Springfield. So, but yes, we don't have a lot of dedicated or state funding that comes to transit.
Okay. And I have another question about CMAQ funds. So what are those and what do we use them for, if we use them at all?
Well, Northwest Arkansas does not have air quality issue, what's called non-attainment. So we're in attainment, actually, which, COVID's not a good thing at all, but our ozone levels were the lowest recorded levels in 2020 since they began collecting ground level ozone. Just want to share that with everybody. So right now we don't have particulate matter, we don't have ozone. So we're in attainment. We don't receive CMAQ funding.
Okay, yeah, that's kind of what I thought, but somebody outside the group wanted me to ask about that, and I thought that was a good question.
It comes up every year. So the good news is, as I look out my window, we have fairly good air quality. It's windy. We're not in a valley where we have an inversion layer. we really haven't been close to the requirements to even begin air quality planning through CMAQ funds. But if somebody wants to look a deeper dive, I get the weekly reports from ADEQ, and I am happy to send that to anybody that wants to look at what at least our ozone is, because I look at it, and the fourth high, 3-year rolling average, and you can get on their list, and you also can, if you like that kind of data, look at how Northwest Arkansas compares to Little Rock or West Memphis.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for Mr. Conklin? You can just jump in if you want. Oh, and one other thing I wanted to bring up, and this is really for the recording part. The Regional Planning Commission also functions as a metropolitan planning organization. What does a metropolitan planning organization do?
We are required by federal law to prepare a long-range transportation plan. So we just completed that 2045 plan. We also put together a transportation improvement program. And then the funding that we just discussed, after 2010, we exceeded 200,000 population for the first time in the urbanized area. And therefore, federal funds come to the region for us to have our board select projects. And we're also the designated recipient for FTA programs with the 2 transit providers. So an MPO is something set out in federal law. It's designated by the governors of both Arkansas and Missouri. And we work closely with RDOT, MoDOT, FTA, and FHWA on our transportation planning.
I think it's really interesting that we cover at least a small part of Missouri also. And, you know, I'm just looking at how these things are put together. They talk about mega regions, you know, that like Cascadia in the northwest part of the country covers Oregon, Washington, and British Columbia, or parts of them. And I just wonder, where does that put us? Are we a mini mega region, or what are we?
You know, we are fairly unique, and I got this from the Northwest Arkansas Council, just looking at the Fortune 500 companies and having 3 Fortune 500 companies lined up in the region. So and then I always throw in the University of Arkansas. So you start on the south end in Fayetteville. You got the U of A with I don't know if you've heard that in the paper last week, 29,000 students. That really surprised me. And then you got Tyson in Springdale. Then you got JB Hunt, and then you got Walmart home campus going in on 8th Street in Bentonville. But yes, the South, probably many of your members like to look at census data and where the population is moving to or leaving from. If you go to the University of Arkansas Little Rock State Data Center, they have some maps out there that you can see with regard to what counties are increasing population and which are decreasing. And I also have all 501 cities that they sent me. And you know, whether or not we like growth or don't like growth, we're very fortunate that we are growing, because there are hundreds of cities in many counties in Arkansas that are not growing and are declining. And I guess to answer your question, you started talking about mega regions. It seems like, and this is not a new trend, but yes, there are very thriving metro areas that are increasing in population. And then there are many areas across the United States that are losing population and not growing and not increasing jobs. And as a planner, just, you know, seeing some of these areas in Arkansas, it does cause me some concern. So, but anyway, just wanted to share that with everybody.
Sure. All right. Well, are there any other questions, any concerns we can cover in the last few minutes here? No. Well, Tim Conklin, thank you so much for sharing part of your Sunday with us.
You're
And
welcome.
we are going to, like I say, we're going to put this up on our website in just a little bit. People will be able to come back and refer to it. There's tons of great information here and lots of good questions and input from all of you. And I do appreciate everyone coming on and listening today. So I guess we'll leave the meeting now, but thank you so much, everyone, again. And
Sorry, I
keep your
have one
eyes
question.
peeled. Keep your eyes peeled for the meeting next month. It'll be in roughly a month. We'll have another one.
Thank you.
Tim, sorry, Tim, do you mind if I ask one last
sure.
question? Sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Sorry, do you have a kind of sense of how we as an organization can be most effective in advocating? Is it just like showing up to meetings and talking and giving comments on plans and stuff like that, or?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And I think, I think everybody realizes we're the MPO, and then we have Ozark Regional Transit, which is a body that was created under state law for the Regional Transit Authority. But at the end of the day, with regard to dedicated funding, we don't have taxing authority. Ozark Regional Transit does not have taxing authority. And it will come down to, cities or counties to do that. And so I think it is important to be engaged. And when they talk about transit funding, I think one of the questions was, well, how much, what level of transit funding is one city versus another? I think it is important that people understand that there's interest in funding transit. So, and I think that's helpful at the ORT board and helpful at the city. So I'll leave it at that. I think being quiet doesn't move the needle at all. So I think
Well, and I just want to say that this next year, we are really going to start ramping up and getting involved in working on dedicated funding. And there, like I say, there's going to be a campaign. We're going to want to print out material and have people go door to door, and we're going to have partners with to do that. And one of the partners will be ORTA. They'll be the leaders, I guess, and we'll be the foot soldiers. So that's kind of the plan that we're looking at right now.
Cool, thank you. Sorry.
Great question.
before I hit my Zoom end.
Nope, no more questions. All right, everybody,
Thank you,
thank you so
Tim.
much. Yeah,
Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. See you guys.
see you later.